Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tighter Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tighter Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TighterInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris, and as always, we're going to be drinking a beverage from Buffalo Rock tonight, just regular, good old ice-cold Pepsi Cola. Oh, man, that is good, and I'm refreshed. What about it, buddy?
What about it?
You ready?
Hey, 6-0.
Hey, we got a lot to cover.
Says it all.
Yeah, let's get right to it. In fact, next up for 6-0, as you mentioned, in BCS top-ranked Alabama, is longtime rival Tennessee this coming Saturday night in Knoxville. More on that game in a moment, but this past Saturday, the Tide was on its way to making mincemeat of Missouri, up 28-0 with over 8 minutes remaining in the second quarter. Then a 38-minute weather delay came, and Bama wasn't quite the same team they were before the stoppage of play. Alabama won the game 42-10, but Nick Saban said on Monday there's a lesson to be learned from what happened in Columbia.
Where I was really pleased with the energy and the intensity and the focus that we came out and, you know, started the game with. And I think it's pretty obvious that when we have a high level of focus and attention to detail, we execute well and we play well. And, you know, when we don't, you know, we can become pretty average. And, you know, that was kind of, you know, the situation in this game. You know, we were dominating the game and had a break and, you know, came out and, you know, sort of didn't play as well during that break and got outscored, you know, 10-0 and let the other team back in the game. So, you know, the whole emphasis is on, you know, playing to a standard of excellence, having the right energy, the right focus, because when we have that, you know, we play pretty well.
Indeed, Rodney, they did play pretty well. That first, about 23 minutes of the first half, they played about as well as any team could be expected to play, particularly when you consider the conditions. They were dominating the game. Just your thoughts on what you saw this past Saturday.
I tell you, Gary, you know, that break certainly set them back. I saw somebody posted on TighterInsider.com that Coach Saban probably could take some tips from Patrick Murphy on how to handle weather delays. But certainly, you know, Gary, anytime you get off to a start with that much intensity, and, you know, Alabama was clearly focused. I mean, they were zoned in, no doubt about it. And obviously, I think the delay took away quite a bit of intensity. Plus, you know, you go in, you're up, what, 27-0, waiting to kick the extra point.
You basically know the game's over.
And let's go back a few years ago when they played Texas in the national championship game, and they go up 24-6 right before the break. Colt McCoy's been knocked out of the game, you know, and they don't quite come out with the same intensity after the break. So, you know, it's just those kind of things. Sometimes it slows down your momentum. Yeah,
and of course, they can always remember back to 2010 in the Iron Bowl at Bryant-Denny Stadium when they were up 24-0 and wound up losing that game 28-7. Still, though, this Missouri team, not quite as much firepower as that Auburn team had. But as you hear Coach Saban say in that soundbite, you always can learn from situations. And this is a team, Rodney, as good as they've been, and again, we've said this before in the program, they've basically had most of their games wrapped up by halftime, but they've yet to put together a complete four-quarter performance. Yeah. And when they do, and I think they will do it when they need to do it, when it's needed. This is going to be just a scary football team. It already is, but they seem to have everything working.
Well, you know, Gary, we talked about in the off week last week, what are some of the things that you would like to see? I think, in fact, one of the questions here on our show last week was, and you know, my thing was I wanted to see Alabama get into a rhythm running the football. I don't think they had established that consistently early on through the first part of the season. You know, obviously, you look at Missouri, their defense was, we talked about how they had been very successful against the run. They had only given up 107 yards per game rushing. Not only that, they had not allowed any rusher 100 yards a game. In a game, Alabama not only had one, they had two. Lacey had 177, T.J. Yeldon with 144. Obviously, Alabama got that running game, that rhythm into that running game, Gary, and that's really good to see as you start heading into that stretch run.
Yeah, Alabama 36.5 minutes of possession time. As you mentioned, Lacey and Yeldon both with huge days, 178, 144 respectively. 3 touchdowns for Lacey, 2 for Yeldon. We saw in the graphic a while ago the defense did not give up a touchdown. The only touchdown coming on that 98-yard kickoff return following the extra point after the rain delay. If we take a look at the numbers, you see, Rodney, the dominance there. It was a complete whipping. In fact, Gary Pinkel said, the Missouri coach, it might have been the finest team that he's ever coached against.
Well, we'll see, because they certainly have some competition left to prove that. But, you know, there you see it. You know, again, the Alabama defense was dominant, which you know, in some ways was kind of expected for the fact that, you know, Missouri is really a beat-up football team offensively across the front, and starting a young quarterback who played fairly well under the conditions. But, you know, again, Alabama, you see that 362 rush yards. That's the big thing that stands out to me. Again, McCarron very efficient. What was he, 16 of 21, I think, for 171, as you see there. One thing, though, Alabama did turn it over a couple of times on fumbles. Lacey had one. A.J. got stripped once. But still, what, plus 13 in turnovers on the year?
Yeah, #1 in the country in turnover margin, #1 in every defensive statistical category through 6 weeks, which is amazing. You see the note on A.J. No interceptions again. Hasn't thrown one this season, but for the first time all season, he did not throw a touchdown pass. Of course, some rumors out there about his knee injury. More on that coming up later on in the program. But first, we're going to turn our attention to the third Saturday in October. And thankfully, this year it is on the third Saturday. Not always the case anymore, but it will be autumn in Knoxville. It'll be beautiful there in Tennessee, on the banks of the Tennessee River and the Tennessee Vols. A 3-3 football team, Rodney, 0-3 in the SEC. But again, this is an opportunity for them to, you know, put a cherry on top of their season, take a big step in securing their head coach for years to come. But this is a banged-up football team, Tennessee is. Rajon Neal, their starting tailback, doubtful for the game, probably won't play after injuring an ankle last week. Their linebacker, Kurt Magid's status is uncertain because of an injury. Even the head coach, Derek Dooley, will be in the press box again after having some surgery last week. But they'll be a hungry football team, and they do have some talent on defense, athletically, and their offensive line probably the best that Alabama's faced this season.
First of all, when you talk about Tennessee, Gary, you talk about that offense. I mean, this is, through 6 games, the most prolific offense in Tennessee history at this point, through 6 games. You know, they have an outstanding quarterback, Tyler Bray, makes quick decisions, strong arm, great receivers, as you know, Cordero Patterson, Justin Hunter, obviously two of the finest in the country, probably both first-round draft picks. Zach Rogers, not bad either. Great offensive line, tremendous pass-blocking offensive line, and they've really picked it up in the running game. They're averaging more than 100 yards over what they did last year, or close to 100 yards more than they did last year. But you mentioned, Gary, the one thing. They don't really have a great running back, and Rajon Neal was a pretty good back. He got hurt, so you know, their running game could suffer somewhat from that.
Defensively, I mentioned their athletes. When you look at their roster, we've got it right here in front of us. They've got some good-looking players on that defensive side of the ball, but production-wise, they've been pretty much just gutted.
Well, I think they gave up, what, 500 yards, over 500 to Georgia, over 500 to Florida. They gave up 450 to Mississippi State. This is a defense that's given up 429 yards a game. Let me give you a little example here. First 19 plays Mississippi State had last week, 9 of those went for 10 yards or more. That's unbelievable. I mean, they're just having a difficult time stopping people.
Of course, former Alabama assistant coach Sal Sinceri is the defensive coordinator there, and you just can't quite figure out why they have had such trouble on defense, but you hope it continues certainly for one more week. All right, let's take a look at the UT quick facts. Of course, Derek Dooley, the head coach, some in Knoxville, hope that that's not the case next year. He could take a big step in securing his job for the future with a win on Saturday night. Last week they lost to Mississippi State by 10. Had cut that down to 34-31, and Rodney, an example of how their defense has struggled. They get to the 3-point game, they never get the ball back. Mississippi State drives the length of the field, scores a touchdown on the next to last play of the game to secure the victory.
Yeah, that was real telling, Gary, no question. Because there was 5+ minutes left in that game, and Mississippi State just took it down. And Mississippi State has not been necessarily a juggernaut offensively, although they have been developing really well with Tyler Russell. So, you know, they have given up, Tennessee has given up 92 points in their last 2 games, 118 in their last 3 games. So they're giving up nearly 40 points a game over the last 3 weeks.
You see some of the key players there on offense and defense. We mentioned Neal probably won't play. 2 great wide receivers. Darrington Centimore, defensive end, making some plays. Former Alabama player, had some not so flattering things to say about Nick Saban yesterday following practice. Said he just hated playing for Nick Saban. Wants to win this game worse than he's won any game that he's ever played in. So we'll see if he can, he's talked the talk, we'll see if he can walk the walk on Saturday night. Well, still to come tonight on Tider Insider TV, we'll have the latest on Crimson Tide quarterback A.J. McCarron's knee injury. That's on the way when we return. You see it right there with the play. Tweaked a little bit. Some people, though, say it might be something more than that. We'll have the details, the latest. Also, Tider Insider TV will be taking your phone calls and answering your emails. As always, the information is on the screen on how to get in touch with us, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at titv@wvuatv.com. Stick around. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Make sure and go by your grocery store and pick you up some Pepsi, Pepsi Next, Pepsi Max, Diet Pepsi, any other Pepsi product, they're all good. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Let's talk about A.J. McCarron. Tweaked his knee on Saturday during the game against Missouri, but we've got video from practice yesterday. Had a brace on his right knee, but was throwing fine, moving fine. And then some guy today, I don't even know his name. I'm not on Twitter yet. Russ Mitchell from College Football News, is that it? Yeah. Goes out there on Twitter and says he's got 3 different sources that say he tore the meniscus. Of course, A.J.'s mom and his cousin quickly got on Twitter and told the guy didn't know what he was talking about. And all expectations here on the Tider Insider TV set is that he's going to play and be fine.
No, Gary, I don't believe anything about that report, honestly. I mean, you know, I was told on Sunday by a very reliable source what it was, and Coach Saban announced it yesterday. That was exactly what I was told on Sunday. And you know, there's no other reason to believe that it's anything else. Watched him yesterday. I watched him myself, and there you saw the video a second ago. Watched him jog, drill to drill. He seemed to, you know, when he planted his back foot, Gary, he threw it well. Didn't seem to have any issues.
So we'll put that one to rest. There's Kristen Jones. He's wearing an ankle brace, but again, he's expected to play as well. And of course, we mentioned those running backs. This is from practice yesterday. Both Yeldon and Lacey had big-time games against Missouri. And if Alabama gets that running game cranked up again against Tennessee, it could be a long night for the Vols. And other news involving Alabama football players, linebacker C.J. Mosley is the SEC's Defensive Player of the Week after he recorded a team-high 12 tackles with a sack, fumble recovery, and quarterback pressure in Alabama's 42-10 win at Mizzou. Mosley is part of a defense that leads the nation in all major defensive categories. And let me tell you something, this guy is a big-time playmaker and has been since he got here as a freshman a couple of years ago. And speaking of freshmen, he's a redshirt freshman, but there's no denying that Alabama defensive lineman LaMichael Fanning is an impressive physical specimen. He's 6'7" and 300 pounds and may have a future in professional wrestling. Saturday, he executed a perfect belly-to-back suplex on Missouri running back Russell Hansbrough. Fanning was flagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on the play, and Coach Saban said yesterday that he had the young man write a letter to the football player and the coach at Missouri, and that he'll learn from this, and this is not the way he wants his Alabama players to play on the field.
Something that we don't condone here. It's not how we want our players to play. I think he understands that what he did was not done in the right way in terms of being a strong competitor, and we are managing internally things for him to do to make better choices and decisions in the future. And I think with all young people, when they make mistakes, that's what you really want to try to do. But he has apologized, written letters of apology to the player and the coach. I talked to Gary yesterday about it. He understands our position on it.
So Alabama handling it very well. All indications are Missouri is fine with the apology. And you know, he's a young player, full of enthusiasm. I'm not saying that that's a good football play, but, man alive, it is impressive.
Well, it is. And you know, the thing about it, Gary, and I can't defend that, but at the same time, I think when you look at it, I don't think the intent was to hurt. He didn't get up and he didn't taunt the guy, stand over him, anything like that. He immediately went back to his position. And you know, again, I think he made a mistake, but at the same time, I don't think he intentionally was trying to.
And let's be clear on this. As I said, he was penalized for the play.
Yeah, he was.
So there was a penalty thrown. We've seen other games where players have done that and not been penalized. So he did get a penalty. He'll learn from it. But if you're an opponent or a fan of a opponent of Alabama, that's late in the game. You've got LaMichael Fanning, redshirt freshman. You've got Derek Lake, true freshman, Darren Lake, and they hardly are able even to get on the field. And those two guys look like they're ready for the NFL physically right now. It bodes well for the future.
Denzel Duvall.
Yeah.
How about Landon Collins? He had a blocked punt. I mean, a lot of freshmen contributing. Tyler Hayes from Thomasville. So
yeah, a lot of physical talent from the senior class right on down to the freshmen. Well, still to come, Rodney and I will have our predictions on Saturday night's game in Knoxville. And don't forget to give us a shout here on the program. You can reach us at 205-348-WVUA or drop us an email at titv@wvuatv.com. We'll be right back with your phone calls and emails right after this. Welcome back. The Southeastern Conference announced on Monday that the Crimson Tide's game against Mississippi State on October 27th will kick off at 7:30 and be televised by ESPN. Alabama beats Tennessee, and Mississippi State knocks off Middle Tennessee. Both teams will be undefeated. This will certainly be a huge game. And the Bulldogs said they thought they had a chance to have a special season. So far, they have. Of course, they'll have a big challenge a week from Saturday night here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Let's take some phone calls. First up tonight is our buddy John in Bessemer. John, what's up?
Gary, what's up, man?
Hey, man.
What's going on with Alabama, man? I watched that game, and Alabama don't look so good. Nick Saban need to talk to them, tell them they can't go there and fumble that ball at Tennessee. Tennessee's going to beat them, man. Later.
All right, John, I have to take umbrage with you just a little bit. I mean, yeah, a couple mistakes in the game, but when you're up 27-0 before a rain delay, you win 42-10. You hold the other team to 120-something yards of offense. You have over 500-something yards of offense. You still win the turnover battle. He's a perfectionist.
Yeah.
He's holding him to a higher standard even than we are.
Yeah. Well, he's the same guy that calls us each week and wants to know if Alabama's going to win every game. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, John certainly does aim high.
Well, John, I will tell you this. They certainly don't want to turn the football over. You're right about that, and I'm sure that'll be an emphasis this week in getting ready for Tennessee. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk with CB. CB, what's going on, buddy?
Much roll tide, man. Look, I ain't got a dog in the race, but I don't know why I was the only one got a little show enough crazy when A.J. went back in the game. I know he's tough, and I know that he wanted to go back in the game, but we had to meet the schedule, brother. I mean, you know, who knows? Thank God he come on in.
Well, I'll tell you this, CB. Coach Saban was asked about that, and Rodney can chime in a moment, and I thought he answered it very well. At the time, it was 28-10. Alabama had lost the momentum. The doctor cleared him to go back in. I didn't have any problem with him going back in and getting the game up to 35-10. And then, of course, Blake Sims came in late and did his thing in the Wildcat. But, you know, after what we've seen against Auburn, what we saw a few years ago against Georgia, you know, even though Alabama won that game, big leads can dissipate the way the game is played today, particularly even in rainy conditions. And I just think Coach Saban wanted to make sure the game was secured. As long as he was healthy enough to go back in and cleared by the doctors, I thought it was a good move.
Well, that's it. He was cleared to go back in, you know, by the doctor. And when you look at that, along with A.J. wanting to go back in, and I think it's good, Gary, because I think when you go back in a game like that, certainly before, you know, you have an opportunity to play after the injury, you know, and you feel good about it in terms of being out there playing.
Yeah, and I think he got back in, took him down for a touchdown, and all is well. That ends well. All right, more of your phone calls and emails right after this. Stay with us. Time is ticking away from us, Rodney, and we still got our predictions to get to, so let's get right back to the phones. We're going to have time for a couple more calls. Let's talk to Kenneth in Tuscaloosa. Kenneth, welcome into the program. Kenneth, you with us? Kenneth? Kenneth is gone. You got his question? Okay. Is there anyone in the SEC West that can stop Bama from getting number 15? Yeah, Kenneth. Everybody left on the schedule is capable of winning in this league. Certainly Mississippi State and LSU are going to be tough games. Auburn, you never take your in-state rival for granted. So Texas A&M is scoring a lot of points. There's a lot of roadblocks potentially left, Rod.
Well, when you look at the next game, well, you've got Tennessee obviously this week. Then you come back, you play Mississippi State here. You have to go to LSU, then Texas A&M. I mean, that's a tough stretch right there. Yeah. There's no question about it. You mentioned, you know, look at Texas A&M and all the points they're putting up. So, yeah, a lot of tough competition.
A lot of football left. A lot of work to done before 15, Kenneth. I can promise you that. LD is in center. LD, how are you, my friend? Make it fast.
All righty. Heaven forbid A.J. McCarron go down. Would they go more with the straight back drop, straight back, drop back quarterback, or
Ely or Sims, basically, is what you're asking. LD, we got to make it fast. I think they might use both. I think we've seen a package with Sims. We've seen Eli in there some. If it comes to that, I think you might see both quarterbacks.
Well, I think you would see both quarterbacks, depending. I think they would probably alternate Philip Ely and Blake Sims. I think depending on what the situation dictated and maybe who they were playing.
I'll tell you one thing. Sims is something in that Wildcat
He's good.
package.
He really is.
He can get it done. All right, coming up, it's prediction time. What do we think about Alabama and Tennessee? You'll find out next right here on Titv. Predictions in a moment, but first, again, you notice the original elephant wear shirts we've got on. You've got on one of the ties. They're available at the Locker Room located on the University Strip, a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964. And it's not just shirts and ties at the Locker Room in terms of the original elephant wear. They've got pants. They've got pullovers, just all kinds of stuff. You can visit them obviously in the store, or you can look them up on the internet. They've got great material. Mr. Gatewood and Rush, the folks there at the Locker Room, they'll take care of you, and you see the different styles that we wear. If you've got a shirt that you see in there and you like it, they'll probably even put the elephant on there for you once they ride.
I've had it done.
For you. Yeah. So get by and see them at the Locker Room. All right, Rod, it's prediction time. How do you see it?
Well, you know, Gary, when you look at this game, it really, to me, it's two teams going in different directions. Tennessee is in disarray, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, they've got a lot of talent. Certainly, they put up a lot of points offensively. They're giving up a ton of points and yardage defensively. We talked about that. But I think there's a lot of internal issues there at Tennessee. You got players holding player-only meetings and such as that. And again, I think there's a lot of disarray there. On the flip side, you have Alabama going in a very positive direction, a team that's very focused. I think Alabama wins 34-17.
You know, Rod, I'm right there with you. You know, I look at Tennessee's roster and I look at all the athletes they have, and I'll be honest with you, I think they ought to be better than 3-3. But it's like Bill Parcells used to say, and I agree with it. You are what your record says you are. There's a reason they're 3-3. They're 0-3 in the SEC, and that is they can't make the plays to win games. And defensively, you cannot get gashed and give up the amount of points and the amount of yards that they're giving up and win football games in the SEC. I don't care how productive or how high-powered your offense is, and certainly their offense is very high-powered at Tennessee. Tyler Bray is a concern because if you make a mistake in terms of your coverage or a guy gets hung up in the secondary and loses a step to a receiver, that quarterback in Bray and those receivers will make you pay. Hunter and Patterson are big-time players. Having said that, Alabama's offense can also be very high-powered when needed to be. I think Tennessee's going to get some points on the board, but not nearly enough. I like Alabama big as well, Rod. 38-13. I just think the Tide makes it 6 in a row, and they move on from Knoxville and come back to home to get ready for Mississippi State in what could be an undefeated showdown a week from Saturday night. Well, that's how we see it. Of course, we'll find out for sure Saturday night in Knoxville. That's going to do it for the program. It's dinner time. We're headed over to Northport tonight to see our good friends Philip Guy and company over at Buddy's Rib and Steak. Come by about 7:15. A lot of folks do every week. We'll talk some football with you or whatever else is on your mind. That's Buddy's Rib and Steak for tonight at 7:15 for dinner. And if you missed any of the program, you can catch it on our website. We'll have it up later on tonight at WVUATV.com. For Rodney Orr and our entire Titv staff here at WVUA TV, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week on Insider TV.